All right, here we go. So why did we start this podcast? To learn from other humans, to grow with other humans, and to share stories. You and I have woken up to some truths, and people are waking up all over the world. What makes up this world are humans, and we all have similar or the same dilemmas. And it's time to have some good conversations. This is Blake Andrews.
This is Freddie Saeed, and welcome to Humans Next Door podcast. The date is November 1st, 2021, and our guest is Trent Sultemeier. Did I say that right?
You said that right. Close enough.
Perfect. Well, yeah, let's get it. We've been talking about this for a while, and you are officially our first guest on our podcast.
It's an honor to be on, Freddie and Blake. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Likewise.
First question, where is Sultemeier from?
So German name.
Okay.
That my grandfather is, first generation German and came over, lives in the hill country.
Okay.
Yep. So started to, he's a farmer, rancher out there. So that's where I started was a ranching family.
And a lot of Germans came over to that's Fredericksburg, right?
Exactly right. Yeah, we're just this side of Fredericksburg and Johnson City in a little town called High, Texas.
Okay.
But
no. I think that we drive through High, Texas to get to our land in Rock Springs.
Okay. Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. If you head out 290, it's a little blip, but is now getting bigger and bigger with the wineries and the vineyards out there.
Yes.
It's a beautiful place.
Yes.
My grandfather was out there and as a sheep, cattle, turkey farmer. Actually, it was when he made his big bucks back in the 50s. Was turkey farming. Who'd have thunk it? So my family's still out there. My brother and my father live out there on the ranch. And then I'm the city mouse here in Austin.
Nice.
I love that.
Yeah.
I would have never thought that you were a Texan. I think you have
right?
that Austin look, and I'm like, he's probably from California. But I think that about every single... yeah.
No, I'm Austinite, born and bred. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
so is Blake. I feel left out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we weren't born like in Russia or by Russia, So like you have a way cooler story than we do. We're just from Texas.
I don't know. Texas is the greatest state for a reason.
You know what? I have to agree. I have to agree. And everybody's, quote unquote, everyone's moving here because Texas is an amazing state. But yeah, like I was born in Tyler. You know where Tyler is?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think it's like the rose capital of the world or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Earl Campbell as well, Tyler Rose.
That's right. That's right. So my dad's side of the family is from Palestine. And my grandmother was a nurse, and the story goes that she didn't trust
From
the doctor.
Palestine, not Palestine.
Not Palestine. Yes, exactly. From Palestine. It's commonly confused with, hold on, Palestine, Israel? What are you talking about?
All right.
You do have the beard, so...
I know. So, but Palestine, Texas, East Texas, it's in between basically Tyler and Bryan College Station, A&M, but it's A&M country. And apparently my grandmother did not trust or like the doctors in Palestine, so she made my mom drive to Tyler to have me. That's why I was born in Tyler.
Oh, wow.
But my family's, from Palestine, and then I think my mom got here by the time I was like 6 months old. So basically born and raised in Austin. And part of my family's out in the country, even though they never really made money. It was more like my grandpa had like 20 head of cattle, and I mean it was just a small little thing to do. As like kind of like a side business that is something that he could be passionate about,
right?
Not something to really, make all the turkey money.
No, and currently you can't really make a living as a sole proprietor, farmer, rancher. You have to be a big industrialist. So my dad still lives on the ranch and raises cattle and sheep, but it's a hobby now for him too.
Yeah,
you can't make a living.
Why can't you make a living?
Full time. Just the scale is counterproductive. Like you have to be able to produce hundreds of head of cattle in order to justify the feed prices, in order to justify the land and to
taxes.
Tax
exempt in some of it, but actually, is it all tax exempt?
Well, the land's tax exempt,
everything else,
Yeah, you're of course paying taxes on equipment and actually equipment, you get some tax exemptions there.
That's true.
But
still, it's a lot of cost.
you're just not able to do it because the large industries really have taken over and they have the economy of scale. And as a smaller proprietor, you just don't have the ability to buy the big equipment and to make it happen. So he has a couple thousand acres there, but it's still not enough to really make a good living on. But you can be a kind of a hobby rancher. So he's like a retired rancher.
Which is such a shame when you think about it, because I mean, we've all seen those videos on the internet of how poorly some animals are treated in those massive farms, right? So by being able to buy from local farms and knowing that, hey, these animals are at least taken care of and it's more humane, it's so expensive. So that's why people don't do it.
Yeah, like I forget how many cattle you can have per acre or like what it ends up being. But talking about economies of scale, like there's such a counterbalance that people don't really look at because everything is so segmented and siloed. Where I heard a very, very smart guy, a doctor actually, talking to Joe Rogan on his podcast and talking about how easy it is to produce beef now compared to what it used to be because of those economies of scale, and you actually use less land and this and that. But then I'm thinking about this other counter argument of what's the quality of the beef, because stresses and hormones that are going into that animal absolutely have a downstream effect on the quality of the meat that you're consuming and giving to your kids. So it's this weird balance of the quality that your family has produced for the community. It kind of has to go away because of that cost aspect,
It does. I mean,
it's sad.
There's a shadow side or a counterbalance to almost anything, right? So,
hence your degree. Keep going.
Well, I mean, we can have organic farms that sell to exclusive restaurants and grocery stores, and if you do that, maybe you can be a smaller rancher and really have a niche market. But then you have to be able to do the sales, and you have to be able to market it. And just a typical rancher, they don't have that
the acumen,
right. My dad's just an average country folk, right? Yeah.
Much like my grandpa.
Exactly. No, so he just wants to be able to ranch and do his thing, and but that's just the the counterpoint to almost everything has that kind of shadow side to it, right? You lose economies of scale, you lose the personalization, but you get better better quality, or you get more efficiency and productivity out of this scale. So, where do you draw the line? Tough to say.
Well, and it's all a pendulum going back and forth. And so I think that we've done that economy of scale thing, and we've realized, hey, you know what? The quality of the meat does matter based on X, Y, and Z. So let's go back the other way. And so we have had a lot more local, like you can get meat delivered to your front door, and that actually ends up being higher quality typically because of their focus. And so, it's back and forth pendulum thing. So
and there's so many different factors too. I mean, you think about the impact it has on the environment. The cattle, right, produces something like 30% of all CO2.
That's what people say. But
I mean, methane is supposed to be even worse than
cows don't say that.
The cows don't say that. They definitely don't say that. No, it's interesting.
But then you try to be more local, and then you get the meat delivered, but then that delivery process. So there's just so many factors to consider with this. What I am really excited about, I don't know if you guys have been keeping up with it, but there's a company in Israel that makes artificial meat from cells. So it's real meat, and they just grow the meat in a lab. So lab grown meat, that's the name for it. There you go. It took me a while to get there. But I mean, that's pretty exciting when you really think about how far technology has come in, and maybe 50 years from now, we don't have cattle anymore. Right? Everything is grown in the lab.
Are people, do you think, going to be receptive to lab-grown meat as a...
Yeah. Because, I mean, imagine we can just add any flavoring to it. This is...
grape flavored meat.
A Cool Ranch beef.
That's funny. So I'm a Texan, just like you're a Texan, and I'm like an elder millennial, but I'm still a millennial. So I'm in this weird gap where I didn't grow up with social media. I didn't grow up with a damn cell phone. I had a cell phone. I think I had a pager, and I was excited about it freshman year of high school. And I think I got my first cell phone like junior year of high school. And no, it didn't have a camera on there. And so like, I don't know about that. I think the answer is a bit more mixed, because you see these plant-based meats in stores, and as soon as like the snowpocalypse that we were talking about happened, everything, all the real stuff is gone, but then like the fake plant-based stuff is not there. So psychology is going to play a lot into it. And I don't know, but he's coming from a slightly younger generation that did grow up with a lot of social media. And my kids, dude, I have middle schoolers, 11 and 13. And I'm listening to this podcast with I think it's Steven Pinker and another guy and Joe Rogan, and they're talking about before 2009 and after 2012, totally different worlds because of social media. And so maybe the younger generations might be more open to it. I don't know.
I don't know. And, you know, like, it's easy to generalize what the next generation is going to do. And it's, is social media going to be the influence? Probably, right? But, you know, the next generation is always looked at in some kind of, you know, down the nose way. You know, Why can't they be more responsible? Why can't they whatever? But this generation also, they say, is going to solve the world's problems. So
real quick question.
Don't look at me.
That. Yeah, don't look at it. He's going to solve Trace's problems. No, what his who says that? Who? Because they, and I've heard that from different verticals. Let's say, right. But who do you say that comes from?
That they are going to solve the world's problems. I actually think some of that I hear is self-professed. You know, there's a lot of, which is I think a good thing, right? There's that confidence of possibility of we're the generation that's making change, that is going to solve a lot of these crises that are upon us. You know, it hasn't happened yet, and a lot of that's perception. And I think the real change is a grind that takes a lot more than social media, and is going to take time and effort. And I think that might be even the weakness of some social media as well, is that you get the perception, but you don't get the reality and the change that's happening. But at the same time, I feel like having that information out there, having it available, and catalyzing people in a certain way is really powerful and unique to this generation. You know, 2010 on, you do have social media, and that's a detriment to some people, but hopefully it's going to influence others in a positive way. I think it can.
I think we just have to wait and see. I mean, I'm sorry for interrupting, but
you're good.
I look at social media. I mean, I see the good that can come off of it, right? People, rallying behind a cause and really making things. I mean, I think back to 2012. Remember, what was it, Kone 2012?
Oh, the
African warlord.
Yeah, the warlord.
Terrible cause, right? Turns out it was not a good thing. But I think back to that was like the first big thing that social media really rallied behind to bring to spotlight. Like, this is something we need to fix, and let's go ahead and do it. But then on the other end of it too, you find a lot of things that we really shouldn't be wasting so much time focusing on, and social media takes away from like important topics. I mean, currently you have tens of thousands of people out on strike against Kellogg and John Deere and all these other companies, and they don't really get much news compared to 200 Netflix employees that are complaining about David Chappelle's new special, right? And I think a big reason for that is because of social media, right? It gives voice to everyone, and I mean everyone, good and the bad. So I'm happy to take all the credit for how great this generation is going to be, but I mean, you've had great generations in the past. All the great things we have now came from people older than me and older than us, right? Mm-hmm. So that's my 2 cents.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so the thing about the younger generations are you can see as a whole a bit of like about how they think about the world. Is it more me or is it more we? And what I heard from, so what I think the guy who first told us this was at a church, and he was like, "This is the first generation since the GI generation that the kids are growing up with a more we mentality, and then also I think what backs that up is this empowerment where the younger generations are almost more empowered now than they've ever been in the past, whereas it used to be, shut up and get behind me, go in the corner, the adults are talking. Now it's, hey, what do you think about climate change? What do you think about this or that? And the only problem with that is perspective, as you know. How old are you, if you don't mind me? How old are you?
48.
48. Perspective is the biggest thing that informs wisdom and informs what you're going to do next in life. And your perspective at 48 is vastly different than it is at 28 or than it is at 18. But you have crazy passionate beliefs at 18 and that maybe you would go and fight for at 18, that now at 48 you're like, now that I have nuance, now that I have perspective, I would go about that differently. And that's my only thing about how social media can really can give a gigantic flame to an idea or a thought process, but it's short-lived because the follow-up. That's one of the things so it's this it's Jordan Peterson's podcast, and it's Steven Pinker and Jonathan Haidt, and I'd recommend everybody go listen to it, or anybody who likes to listen to scientists talk. It was Enlightenment and the Righteous Mind, and in there's all of these different little segments in there that talk about this. And one of the detractions that one of those doctors were talking about with the social media thing is that it doesn't like shit doesn't get done. It just doesn't get done because you're focused on it, but then it's gone.
And then the next thing pops up.
Mm-hmm. It's gone, So how do we take the positive advantages of this bullhorn, but then actually make some change? And I think that's just something that we're gonna have to figure out.
There are just too many problems to solve.
There are too many problems, yeah, and there's no easy solutions to any of it. But the recognition is the first step of it. So I think getting it out there is certainly a valid place to start. But yeah, it seems like a lot of the planning falls short after that. But it's also difficult to determine, right? As you're an 18-year-old, where do you focus this boundless optimism and this energy, and what do you do, and how having the ability to churn through and cycle through, I think becomes, even if you do it incorrectly, is more important than having the nuance sometimes, right? Just keep on doing it, and you'll find that groove.
Mm-hmm.
But all these things take time, and I think that's the fallacy of some social media is the immediacy and the expectation of immediacy for most things. Whereas in reality, you do have to keep at it and plugging away.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's a big reason why we started this podcast in the first place as well, because you want to feel like you're making an impact in the world. Mm-hmm. We talked about this on our previous episode, but very quick summary of our goal with this podcast is to give a platform to just people like us, right? But the overall goal is to be able to really push the needle towards a more positive and a better society. Maybe we're not going to be able to change the lives of millions of people, right? But if we change the life of one or two people, because now they can think about things more positively, or they're taking better care of themselves because they're learning life lessons from Trent about what he has experienced, right? I think our goal is going to be accomplished.
Yeah. Well, and that gets to you and back to you and your history. German, it was your grandfather that got here first? And then your dad, and then you, and everybody's back on the farm. And then what made you decide to not stay on the farm and live in that small town? What made you be a city rat?
Yeah. We did grow up in Austin. And then my dad would go back to the ranch, and I would every weekend growing up, and my brother as well. And my brother ended up just liking it and staying out there. And then I went to A&M for college. So
what high school in Austin?
To Westlake High School.
Oh, okay, tight.
Yeah. So grew up all through there, and then went over to Texas A&M, so I've been very Texas centric.
Yeah.
Have you lived anywhere outside of Texas?
After college, I moved to St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands for a while, and then I moved to Vegas, and then Dallas and Houston. So it's been mainly Texas most of my life.
So tell us a little bit about right after college. So what did you study in college, and how did you end up in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, and then in Vegas, and how long was that? And
So after school, I got a job in St. Thomas with the Sterling Silver Jewelry Company. Right. So
What did you get your degree in though?
It was business management. Okay. I when you were saying before that you doing sales and doing outside sales, that's I cut my teeth doing that at A&M as well, doing outside sales.
What'd you sell?
I sold books door to door.
Okay.
Yeah.
I may have
No
bought
kidding.
books from the same company that you
Southwestern?
used to sell for. Maybe?
Yeah, and I sell study guides.
Okay.
All right, so like study guides for kids, and then children's books. And I lived in Duluth, Minnesota for a summer, selling books door to door.
It was.
Knocking on doors.
that's why I like Trent. I knew there was something to it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I've done the outside sales thing, and it really has informed how I view. I've done sales most of my life up until I started my own business 8-10 years ago, but which is only sales.
Exactly.
It's not that it's
try
just
not
sales.
getting out of bed
only
and
sales.
paying your bills.
Yeah.
No, you're a salesman.
So previous to that, though, it was more like software sales, but selling books door to door is what introduced me to the cruel reality of the sales gig. So that was really fun.
Would you say that was a positive experience for you? Do you look back on you learned a lot from doing door-to-door sales?
Yeah, positive is a loaded term, right? It was an experience, and it was positive. I learned a lot, and we were talking before about jobs and job experiences, but that was one of my I think pivotal job experiences. Another one was at Dell, probably 10 years after that. But at Southwestern, living in Duluth, Minnesota, and seeing just raw ambition that some of the guys had that were selling books up there. You're all in competition and you're knocking on doors, and the ways some people would lie, cheat, and steal their way through it. Other people do it with great integrity. And
Which one were you?
Yeah, right.
Which one were you? I'm down the middle.
Right. Yeah, I'll tell you about this one guy, Dale Gobbets. Dale Gobbets was the guy, right? Whereas 30 of us from A&M that all came up to Minnesota and Wisconsin and sold books door to door. It's basically like Bible salesmen, but it's study guides for kids. And every week we'd meet in Wisconsin, Superior, Wisconsin, and we drive over from Duluth, Minnesota, and meet. And every week there'd be a big circle of guys, and we talk about the week. And I hear the same thing with Freddie in the sales thing. How many you sell this week? And so every week you'd stand, and I was usually one of the first 5 or 10 to sit down, being that my sales weren't that great, but I stuck it out the entire summer. About half the guys just left because it was too hard. But Dale Gobbets, it was his first year, and he would always be standing towards the end, right? And this guy, man, he was like Norse god, it's like Dale Gobbets. He's got a sweet car and his girlfriend, rich parents, and
all the muscles.
Oh, he does. He had muscles on muscles that we didn't even know about. What is this guy? This guy's great.
Damn it, Dale.
Yeah, I know, Dale Gobbets, man. And so you go around, and one week Dale wasn't there, right? 8 weeks into it, and but our manager Larry was like, well, you know what? Dale was in a car accident. He's not going to be here today, but he's still selling, and he's selling hard, and he's doing what he has to do. And as it turns out, he didn't. Dale actually left that next week. But that entire time, Dale had been basically gaming the system and saying that he was selling books, and he'd have to put his own cash deposit down to actually ensure the books were going to be shipped out. But man, like everyone was so in love with this guy, Dale Gobbets. He was amazing. It turned out when he was driving his car in the car wreck, he kind of had a mental lapse and drove his car off into a ditch because he was so upset about like not being able, like, because he's on the lam, you know, he can't afford the books that he's trying to buy. He's lying. He's in a total mess, right? So it really taught me, like, the in hindsight, like, man, like how people react to incentives and to peer pressure and to the achievement and making sure that you're at the top of the class. And Dale was probably a really cool, nice, fun guy. We revered him, right, until he got knocked down. But that entire time, like he could have just been Dale Gobbets. He didn't have to be this guy who was trying to overachieve and lie about it. So that really kind of formed for me, like, man, like people will say all kinds of things that they, you know, that they don't have to. He didn't have to do that. Yep. And you could blame Dale. You could blame the pressures. You could blame the system. There's a lot of people and a lot of processes you could blame for that. Mm-hmm. But that was the end result. You know, so
that's crazy.
Have you talked to him since then?
I don't know what happened, Dale.
Yeah. Man, and that's it's crazy because I would imagine that most guys that aren't Dale, that are in that group, have a series of emotions, and some of them could have been like, fuck Dale, could have been like pissed off at Dale. Yeah. But then could have been like relieved, like, oh, okay, it was fake. And so like, I'm not judging, I'm not being judged against, you know, that anymore because that was fake. And so it's almost like a relief, you know, you're not, but then, and then it's like, fuck, poor Dale, man. Yeah. Like, I mean, that's a real human, you know? And I've lied before. Maybe I didn't lie to that degree, but I've lied before.
But so once you started it, then he got kind of wrapped up into it and was forced to keep acting like he was, you know, the big winner. Yep. Right. So it's a really tough situation for him once he got into it. I honestly probably felt more relief, right? Mm-hmm. You know, like, oof, yeah, the superstars.
Yep. Well, and it's crazy. So I cut my teeth in sales, doing cell phone sales, and I specifically targeted a company that was more of like a team environment than like a crazy cutthroat environment like most sales organizations are. And that really helped me because I would much rather help both of us win than there be one winner and one loser. I'd rather both of us win. I may win more this time than you, and you may win more next time than me, but that's just the way that I am and I have been for a long time. And so it worked out really well, but it protected me and protected a lot of other guys that were more service-oriented from the cutthroats, but then you could really see the cutthroats, and it took a lot of time to see those kind of people. And what's nuts is that like the Wolf of Wall Street guy, it always comes back. In the end, maybe it doesn't always.
I mean, I'm sure there are some people.
Maybe it doesn't always.
It doesn't always.
Yeah, I think that's it doesn't always. Some people, it works for them and they can lie their way through and sell, or not even, they don't have to lie their way through. They can just pressure people or just, you know, have their own best interest at heart, and it works out okay for them. You know, that's I mean, that happens. Right?
Psychopaths exist, right? But just from my own experience and from the experience of people that I've worked with, from my mentors that have taught me everything that I know whenever you're selling, if you have this server attitude, right? I'm here to serve, I'm here to help, then you actually end up performing way better than those that are trying to lie, cheat, and steal, or use these, you know, dirty tricks to, you know, get that sale. Because at some point it's going to catch up to you. I mean, I remember I was working as a recruiter, and this is a story that I've told. I placed the guy for a job that, you know, he's been looking for a job. I placed somebody else in that role, right? And I got the information about where he's interviewing and called up that manager and placed somebody else, and I just couldn't do it. I mean, the money and everything was great in the role, but just the overall, that feeling of like, oh, what am I doing with my life? Can I really do this and be happy with myself long term?
Because you told me that it felt like you were manipulating someone's life. Like, I'm manipulating their life. They want this job, and I literally prevented them from getting that job. It was me.
Exactly. So that's a tough pill to swallow, and I think most people are good, right? Deep down, even the bad people, they have good in them, and they go, I can't keep living my life like this. And then once they make that switch and they start selling with a positive mindset of like, I'm here to help, I'm here to serve, they actually end up performing better.
Well, at some point, like, we're all selfish by nature because we have to be. And I think that at different points in our species development, we've had to be more selfish and then been able to not be as selfish. And maybe it even changes from decade to decade. I don't know, but that leads back into, you know, what you decided to get your degree in now. So it was business management undergrad, and then now you're going for.
Yeah, and now I'm getting a master's at UT with a human dimensions of organizations degree. So a little bit of a mouthful there, but
unpack that for me.
yeah, it's basically applying the social sciences, so psychology, anthropology, social psychology to the workforce. It's answering questions like how people best work together. How do you design workflows to incorporate people's best best attributes, and how do you get people to buy in, and how do you design an organization to help run more effectively. And then also, the program is very much about how do you also help people to bring their whole selves and to feel comfortable, and so there's a bit of that like a HR kind of side to it as well.
Yeah.
So what made you get into that? Because you go from door-to-door sales into software sales, and I still don't know what you do here at Trace. We're going to dive into that in a minute. But going for this master's degree in a field that I think is pretty far off from sales. I mean, just from the way you described it. So what made you go for it?
Yeah, it is pretty far from sales. I quit VMware was where I was at about 10 years ago. And so it was, software sales, good company, actually a great company. The product almost sold itself, and I caught it at the right time as well. And before they went public, and it was like, wow, this is a great product. And so having something that you can just call the prospect and they're like, yes, can I get 5 of these? And you're like, great, yeah, let's do it.
Great.
Yeah, I really believed in it too, and I still believe in it. It's you could save people a lot of money. You could really transform their entire IT organization using this software. So it was a big deal, and I felt really comfortable talking to people about it. I've been in other jobs. I've had many different sales roles, and that wasn't the case usually, right? Where you can just go in and know that you feel confident about this product, and you can with all earnestness and clarity look at somebody in the eye and be like, you need to buy this, right? And so I don't like to manipulate people and to feel like they walked away and maybe didn't make the decision they would have made today I made them make yesterday. So, and that's part of sales, is you're making people make a decision. Right?
You're supposed to be helping them, but obviously, to the degree that's like coming from a kind heart or like a selfish heart. I mean, that's what determines what plays it out. But you are helping them make a decision, because people are undecided, but they need something. You just need to help them make.
They need
a decision.
an expert, right? I mean, people say sales is something you do to someone, right? But in reality, it's something you do for someone, right? So if you have that, like, hey, I'm here to be that expert because I've been doing this job for X amount of time. I know what I'm talking about, and I have your best interest at heart, and you directed them. I mean, I've literally talked to people here at Trace where I said, hey, I don't think this is going to be a good fit for you. Go with VO. Go with another company. Get a GoPro, right?
Yeah, right.
And like, yes, you lose out on a couple of deals here and there, but overall, I think you do better because, first of all, you don't feel like crap about what you're doing to other people. But also, you just have that helper mentality, and people talk, and I don't know.
Yeah, and it gets back a little bit to, Blake mentioned it before about getting into the sales team with cell phones, and having the structure. I think I'm a big proponent of the structure, and the process of the company will help to drive that behavior. So we've talked, a little bit about, if you're a little more selfish, or if you're a little more altruistic, or what your personality is. I feel that culturally, the people around you and the processes around you drive people's behavior even a lot more than what we give it credit for, right?
Absolutely.
So if your team's aligned to help customers, then it can do that. But most teams, and Trace probably included, although I don't know all the details, are probably more incentivizing sales reps to be hero performers and to like jump into individual accomplishments and
self-serving.
Ultimately.
Ultimately.
And it may be the best way to drive a sales organization, or it's certainly one good way to drive a sales org. But you also can have a very team-centric sales org that the entire team benefits from a common goal, as opposed to kind of individuals. And that's a lot of just the process of how you set up the company and how you set up incentives. And almost every sales org I've been to has been very individually driven. You're a team, but you're only a team in that you're 10 individuals that are all competing against each other and not get fired.
Exactly.
Well, I wonder if a solution for that would be, how commission structures nowadays are structured around your own individual work, right? Whatever effort you put in, that's how much you end up getting paid. That's one thing I love about sales. But like you said, it does end up putting the focus on an individual instead of on the team. And I wonder if having team goals, like if the whole team reaches X amount, we give out this much bonuses or commission. I wonder if that would help.
Curiously, that's how the cell phone company was set up. Anytime
as a team.
Yep. Anytime us three. So it's Trent, Freddie, and myself. We're showing up on a shift Sunday morning up in Cedar Park. Anything that comes in the door that wasn't self-generated, like I have an appointment, just anything that comes in the door, whether you sell it or I sell it or Freddie sells it, it's all shared. It's split evenly between all three of us. So that means that whenever you, Trent, are fielding a family of 4 and they all want to switch from AT&T to Verizon, I am like, fuck yeah, Trent. Trent's going to make me some money, bitches. I love this. Trent,
Yep.
Trent, what can I do for you, Trent? And it's like, hey, can I come over there and help you smooth the process so that the customer is super happy and maybe they buy more. And anything that they're buying, I'm splitting. However, then there's the next level of personal responsibility and that individual getting that recognition for being a singular performer. Well, I can upsell something, and if I upsell a certain some things, then all the commission goes to me. None of it, might not be. Let's say in that scenario, you add on an air card, which nowadays our cell phones are its own mobile hotspot. Well, before that, it was a little mobile hotspot card. If we sold those, then all the commission for those went to the individual. So there's incentive to be driven and ask for more and all that kind of stuff. There's also incentive to, whenever somebody comes in for customer service, hey, here's my number, call me, what's your number? I'm going to call you, let's follow up, let's set an appointment, because that's going to be future business for just me. So there's that, but the foundation was all, if we're working together, we are working together, and I want you to succeed.
Yep, it's really important, and the book actually that led me to want to go to the HDO program is a book called Reinventing Organizations by Fred Lelou.
Okay.
Great name.
Yeah, right. So Lelou was a Accenture consultant and did a lot of org design consulting and programs, and really came around to this different way of viewing teams. And he will assert that, and I think it's very effective. I think anytime you can do a team-oriented type goal, it's for the best. But he really does away with a lot of hierarchy within organizations and makes everything more of a circular team as opposed to a pyramid org chart.
Yeah.
That allows exactly what you're saying. It keeps everyone aligned to the same goals. It makes you want to help each other out without having the hierarchical type of I guess, pushback that you typically can get.
Right.
Yeah. So a lot of the team oriented type of, organization design theory is really where I wanted to get into the Human Dimensions program.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with the A-type personalities in those situations? Because I know me, and I'm all about the team, but I like to be recognized, right? If I put in a shift, right, and I do really well, it's not even about the money. I just need the recognition to somebody come and pat me on the back.
Yep.
And I don't think my feeling on this is even as bad as a lot of people that I know from my previous company, where like if they're not getting paid the big bucks for going out and working till 2 a.m., right, knocking doors, if they're not getting the recognition, if they're not getting thrown up into the rafters the next day because they sold 5, right?
Yeah.
They're going to be pretty like down on themselves and like, oh, this is BS. It doesn't matter if they made $5,000 in a day.
Yeah.
They're still upset because they are not getting that recognition. So how do you deal with people like that?
Well, so think about the structure of a team. So in one, not everyone is really suited for that type of team environment in the sales org. There's going to be some lone wolves that really just need to do their own thing, and that's totally fine. But if you think about it from the team perspective, what's more likely to drive behavior? To have your manager and just you to give you appreciation, or when you push the ball past the goal line, your entire team is incented to make money off of what you do, and you get great job, Fred, from your entire team, as opposed to just so it's all how you had, but you have to align the team first, right?
Absolutely. And how much better is it to get genuine recognition and praise versus fake applause because I have to, because the manager's looking at all of us and we have to applaud you, even though realistically I resent you that you succeeded and I didn't. Right.
And that's right. And you get a lot of animosity around, I'm making this manager all this money kind of thing. Right. And there's too much resentment when you don't align the team, but it's a lot more work up front to align the team. Right. You have to have, and you use like the soccer analogy or whatever, right? I mean, if it's a lot better to have the entire team passing the ball and get it up to the, to the forward up near the goal. And I don't really play soccer, so I don't have the analogy right. But, but as opposed to everyone just trying to kick it from midfield and seeing how many goals they can make, right? Like really having the whole team drive a sale can be more beneficial for the customer as well, right? Like they're getting multiple touch points, they're seeing Trace from a different perspective. Maybe customer service is incented to drive sales, right? Which is a totally radical theory, but they might be the best person to actually have prospects, sent over to the team. So there's a whole holistic way of looking at profitability and sales.
I love that.
And Zig Ziglar said, you can have anything you want in life as long as you help enough other people get what they want. And the thing about it is it's only in customer service. It's only in solving problems that you even ever uncover a problem that you would have never uncovered in the very like front aspect of the relationship. It's only in that customer service that, oh, we didn't even know this problem existed, but this is the problem that we need, solved. And the customer service person who knows maybe the whole suite of offerings. Oh, you know what? I'm surprised that the sales guy didn't talk to you about this because this thing that we do would be perfect to solve that problem. And so absolutely customer service people, they should be. That's how Trent ended up being really, really, really good. Was I think the customer service side of things really added on, and they were incentivized to do really good, so that they signed up for another year or 2 years or whatever, and then also added to their suite of what Trent offered.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even when I think back to Vivint, just they would have, it's an alarm company, right? And first responders, people that actually have to answer the call. Now, I haven't seen this personally, but this is what the management told me. A bunch of other people that have gone to the monitoring stations told me is they're tracked on their average response time, and the rep with the lowest response time ends up winning prizes every week, Apple Watches and AirPods and this and that and Bluetooth speakers, right? And okay, this is why our response time was like 7 seconds on average. right? And with other companies, it's like 30, 40 seconds, a minute sometimes. So, and I think that kind of goes back to what you said about the whole team working together with the goal of making the overall company better and helping the customer out. We would love to pick your brain on that with Trace and see where we can do better.
Well, I'm going to school for such things. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Well, and that so what do you? I don't even know you. What do you do here at Trace?
We're getting to the most important question.
Right, for Freddie. Yeah.
Yes.
Because I don't work at Trace. So I started Atmosphere, which is originally a co-working office, about 8 years ago, and it's a 7,500 square feet office space here on Cesar Chavez. I've expanded over the years, went from like 5,000 to 20, added 2,500 to make it 7,500 square feet. But before the pandemic, it was more, and Trace was in here for a little bit before the pandemic, but I started as a traditional co-working space, which was small companies, individuals, run a lot of networking events and, evening freelancer events. And I would host, design workshops and really have more of a freelancer / small business community in the space. Mm-hmm. And that was fine. I would have a lot of offsite meetings come in, and I really enjoy I enjoy kind of talking about the process and structure of things. I kind of like how things are set up and how can I put this meeting room into a certain way, and how are people going to react when they walk into this room, and what do they do, and who talks loud and who talks soft and who does this, and so I'm real interested by all of that. But as the years went by, like it was less and less individuals in the space and more companies, small companies, and then mid-sized companies, and now Trace has been the largest company that's took over the whole space. So with that, I don't run any like networking events. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. So I'm really, for Trace, I'm a provider of short-term office space, and we're talking about making it longer term, but nice. But that depends on what Trace wants and what's available, and we're talking about that right now. So for the offering that I really for Trace is just to make sure everything is running smoothly. People can walk in and have the office available and the snacks and everything is ready to go. But that wasn't the original vision, and that's one of the reasons why I got into the HDO program, is kind of help to facilitate. I really found working with a lot of individuals in the co-working space, it's tough to get people aligned. And we do weekly meetings, and I have waffle Wednesdays, and like make waffles and bust my ass with molasses every freaking week, and so it was a lot of work, and I felt like I was building a community, but it was only okay. It was never like this thing exactly, but a larger company in the space, they can become a thing. They have a common purpose. They have a reason to come to work every day and to see each other and to talk about things and to have context for their conversations, right? Not just how's the weather, but let's talk about this deal and how we can make this different. And people are really excited to make progress every day. So now I've come around to where I'm not so interested in like this freelancer kind of gig thing, but how do I help shape companies and how they interact with each other and make employees feel more comfortable in work and really want to be in the office every day. So I'm figuring it out, honestly, Freddie. Like what I don't know what I do exactly, but one of the values I provide for the company is that they get like really flexible terms and kind of come and go as you need from it. But yeah, it's an office space provider.
I love that.
And Atmosphere owns the building. Atmosphere is your company?
Atmosphere is the company. I'm renting the building, right? So it's
okay.
Yeah.
So you rent the building and then you lease it out to companies, and so this is your baby to do with what you want.
Right.
You just have to pay the bill every month.
Correct.
Or year or whatever.
Every month it comes due.
Every month.
Rent's due every month.
So that's interesting. So because I don't think that many people look at a commercial space and think someone is renting that space to then go and rent it to other people.
Yeah, I didn't know that was an option.
Well, that's what co-working, in
like
concept is. Yeah, WeWork is that's what WeWork does, right? It's a lot of hassle. And believe me, like going through that process of signing a lease and being on the hook for it every month. And, that takes you've got this debit on your account as a company, like for the next 5 years, you've got this $1 million debt it decreases your valuation. And so that's one of the main.
It's a sunk cost.
Yeah.
It is just a cost. You can't get away from it.
Well, you can if you go through a co-working space where you don't have long-term debt and you don't have to pay for the furniture. And so you pay a little more every month for the convenience of having the flexibility of not having it on your books and not having to deal with buying the furniture and not having to mess with the internet or getting the coffee or doing all that, right? So that's where the value is for those companies of being able to just take that off their hands entirely. And it's not, I don't have to do tons and tons for it either, right? Like I'm here doing schoolwork for the most part, but I used to have to really hustle to book meetings and to book people every day and to
make waffles
and build. So that's
that gave me the picture of almost like a hostel, where like a hostel, the value of a hostel is that it's inexpensive and you can just be there for a day or 2 days or a week or 10 weeks, doesn't matter. But then there's some weird kind of community that happens in a hostel, but there's not necessarily permanence. You don't really have something that can build and grow and all that kind of stuff. So it's interesting that you had that kind of like nomadic sort of situation, and you don't really have a lot to stand on every single day, every single week, every single month for your own self. Like you have to, like you said, go out there and hustle all the time,
right? Just
to make sure in that kind of hostile sort of, workspace mode where come and go as you please. Like that seems stressful.
Right. Well, it can be, and the hostel's a pretty good analogy to it. In a hostel, you at least have people aren't from there. There's that commonality and they want to do stuff. So that's a good way to take of an entry or an entree into people's lives. Is like, hey, you're not from here. Let's go out and hang out. So it had to be a little more interesting in how I would network people in the space and try to connect them and really try to host weekly meetings and have it be something where it's pretty structured, but get everyone involved and go round table and discuss everyone's issues and problems and how we can help each other. And those were good, but it still lacked that kind of like common. What's the common bond? What's the purpose? Why are we really, really doing this? Why am I taking time out of my day? When you're at your job, it's easy to know why you're doing it. Like you have this team that you're working with, and you're all trying to push the ball forward, and so it can really be exciting to be around a team of people and engage and all have a common purpose, and so. That idea is what led me to the space initially to help drive that. But, with Trace being the space, that's where it is today. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
I love that. Now, just going forward too, actually going backwards. It's been a long day. How did COVID affect the business? Because I feel like that would really make it less likely that freelancers would come in and, work out here, right? Because they're all working from home. And because I know commercial property values went down quite a bit.
Hugely, right?
Oh, certainly, yeah. No, the occupancy rates were nothing around here, especially if you could get out of your lease.
Right.
So that's
liability. Just you would get rid of your liability.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
So if you don't have to have the lease, then you're out, right? So companies that were in the space previous to the pandemic, Trace being one of them, even though smaller than you are currently, were like, we're out, see you later.
Yeah.
And
how many months was that?
Well, I guess it's debatable if we're out of the pandemic yet, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right. I mean, so it's still an ongoing thing as far as people are still reticent to come back to the office, whatever's going on out there, people are still reticent to come back to the office.
But so you had said that Trace was, at the time whenever the pandemic happened, Trace was renting or leasing space, and they said, we're not. So you had no one leasing space for at least.
Well, so Trace was one of 3 companies, and I had a few other freelancers in the space that stayed.
Still okay.
So Trace left. There was another company that was still in the space, and they were paying full rent. And I'd worked with them on some like culture workshops, and we were pretty tight. They had been in the space for a long time. Brain Labs, I know you met them. So.
I see the cups.
Yeah. So when did you start here?
March.
Okay.
March of this year.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it would have been, March 2020 was pandemic.
Yep.
And that was just, the company that was Brain Labs that was in the space, they stayed in for a while. I was tap dancing with my landlord to figure out how to properly.
At the dance studio?
Yeah. Yeah, basically. Yeah. That's always, it was a negotiation to how much I can pay them every month. And so we negotiated that out. And for a while I was really, happy because it didn't seem like I was going to stay in the space. And I was like, I'm out,
okay.
Like we're done.
Yeah.
So,
a little bit of a relief.
It was a relief. Yeah. But then I was able to figure out a way to kind of stick with it. And then I was like, okay, I can do this. Which is a relief too.
Yeah.
And, but of different kinds. So I really try to stay open to I'm not going to try to force my way through the pandemic and totally ruin everything that I have in order to pay this lease. So it was a bunch of back and forth trying to figure out how do I work with the landlord, how do I keep tenants in. Trace coming in a few months ago and really kind of taking over the space was huge. At this point, I could probably go back to something similar to what I was doing before. There's enough demand. But if Trace stayed in, or if another large company was in, that's my preference to be able to also work with them on a bit
and invest, like you said, invest and feel like your investment has impact and long-term impact. Yeah. That's awesome. That's so cool. I've often wanted to get into. So I've done something with houses forever. My wife and I've loved houses forever. On dates we used to grab coffee or grab ice cream and just drive around Austin and
Mozart.
Look at Mozart's. Yeah, dude. Oh my gosh.
I've lived in houses most of my life.
I like houses. But whenever you're like this little young, not rich kid, you're driving around and seeing this architecture and this beauty and not even knowing why you like something, but just being drawn to it. But houses have always been a thing. And then there's like this flip culture, and you can buy a house and flip it, and then whatever. And commercial property has always been just this weird other world that just seems absolutely alien to me, and I think probably alien to most people, because it's almost in the same vein as what Fortune 500 businesses deal with as far as business. It's just a different way of thinking about business and life and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very, very happy to learn about all this that you're talking about. I just couldn't imagine personally getting into it. I'd rather get into buying just a single family house and renting it out. Not all of this complexity, bro. This is crazy. It's stressful.
Yeah, you don't have to make waffles and to run workshops.
I'm down with making waffles. I'll make them coffee. I will serve the crap out of them. But this is crazy. I can't. But then it also makes sense. Like the landlord needs you as much as you need. So they don't want, just because you can't pay the rent doesn't mean that they want you to go away, because you're their access to having people leasing the building.
Well, I'm the best short-term solution, right? Because people can come in and rent it immediately. And we're still in this time where people aren't coming back to the office in droves, right? Most companies,
I don't think they will.
They won't, right? You're right. So there'll be a lot of companies that stay away and they'll do a hybrid of in real life and virtual work. I think you still will find companies. I think all companies will find that they need to have some kind of person-to-person interaction.
Yep.
So even if it's a totally distributed team that's going, for a quarterly retreat or, a biannual retreat, even, you need something, right? And so a space like this is more nimble. I can accommodate, different teams for different frequencies of stay, but it becomes a lot more difficult than just taking it to one person or one company. So
a lot of spreadsheets.
Yeah, I just wing it. one spreadsheet, one big spreadsheet.
That's right.
Well, Trent, it's been an hour, so what I wanted to do, I wanted to ask you, what is one advice that you can give to our listeners, just about life, from your own life experiences that you've built out. Love to hear it.
Advice instead of
Very
advice.
vague and very loaded, I know.
Right. I have found that if I make myself a little more focused and a little more aggressive about getting my ideas out there, they tend to succeed. I sometimes will tend to retreat into the background and think about things too long. But anytime I've gotten out there and really pushed it and been aggressive about it, and got my friends involved with it and became excited about it, and if I believed in it, then good things tend to happen. So I'd say, go be a little more aggressive than less aggressive if you if you have a good idea.
I like that.
I like that. Yeah, that was awesome. Well, we really appreciate that you joined us as our first ever guest.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It has been, and we'd love to have you back. I feel like there's so much more to know about you.
Well, 6 months down the road, after you've learned more about your degree and what you want to do, because I wanted to ask, I know we're over time, so we can't, but I wanted to ask you, what do you see as the next iteration of your professional life? Because obviously where you're going there, it kind of has some ties to what you're doing now, but not really. It's a different universe than being a commercial space facilitator, So maybe next time we can talk more about that.
Check back for the cliffhanger conclusion.
That's right.
Season
That's
2.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure, and see you guys next time. Peace.